We thought we were alone, but the woods were watching. It all started with an itch for an adventure. A weekend camping trip, just me and my 3 best friends, Sarah, Mark, and David. We were all in our early 20s, just out of college, looking to escape the suffocating city for a few days. We chose a spot deep in the woods, a place a little too far off the beaten path, hoping for true solitude. We'd been there before, but never this far in. We found the perfect clearing, a small patch of grass nestled beside a slow-moving creek, with a dense wall of ancient pine trees behind us. It felt like our own private little world. The first night was perfect. We set up our tents, started a crackling fire, and spent hours telling old stories and laughing until our sides hurt. The stars were incredible out there, a thick blanket of silver and white against the black canvas of the sky. The only sounds were the crackle of the fire and the gentle murmur of the creek. It was exactly what we needed. We finally went to bed around midnight, exhausted but happy. The whispers started on the second night. We had just finished a late dinner and were sitting around the embers of the fire when I first heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible sound, like someone talking from a long distance. I paused, tilting my head. "You guys hear that?" I asked, my voice low. Sarah looked up from her phone, her brow furrowed. "Hear what?" "It sounds like talking," I said, listening intently. Mark snorted. "Probably just the wind in the trees, man. You're hearing things." I shook my head. It wasn't the wind. The sound was too distinct, too rhythmic. It was like a very, very quiet conversation. I listened closer, trying to pinpoint its source, but it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a strange, unsettling feeling. I tried to shake it off. Mark was probably right. It was just the wind, or maybe some other campers further down the creek. But the sound stayed with me, a persistent, eerie hum at the edge of my hearing. We went to bed a little earlier that night, the mood slightly dampened by my strange observation. I lay in my sleeping bag, trying to fall asleep, but the sound kept me awake. I finally gave up and unzipped my tent flap, poking my head outside into the cool night air. The moon was bright, casting long, pale shadows. The fire was just glowing coals now. The air was still and silent, except for the whisper. It was louder now. Not much, but enough to make my stomach clench. It was a rapid, overlapping chattering, 1,000 different voices speaking at once in a language I couldn't comprehend. It was like tuning a radio and catching a dozen different stations at the same time, all mashed together into a chaotic, unsettling drum. The sound seemed to be coming from the direction of the dense pine forest behind our tents. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't the wind. This wasn't other campers. This was something else. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the mind. The solitude, the darkness, the rustling leaves, all of it was playing on my imagination. But the sound was real. I zipped my tent back up, pulled my sleeping bag tight around my shoulders, and tried to ignore it. Eventually, a few hours later, I must have drifted off. The next morning, I woke up to a low hum coming from David's tent. He was a notorious snorer, so I didn't think anything of it. But then I heard Mark's tent, and Sarah's, and realized the low hum was the sound of all 3 of my friends talking to themselves in their sleep. They weren't snoring. They were whispering. My blood ran cold. I sat up in my tent, completely still, listening. It was the same sound from the night before, that frantic, overlapping chatter, but now it was coming from inside the tents. From my friends. I unzipped my tent and scrambled out, the morning sun doing little to calm the dread I felt. I looked at Mark's tent, a small, dark shape. The whispering was loud and clear now. I crept over and knelt down next to it, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mark?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The whispering inside stopped instantly. Silence. "Mark, you okay?" I asked again, louder this time. After a long pause, I heard him stir inside. "Yeah, fine. Just sleeping." His voice was groggy and normal. I backed away, confused and scared. I repeated the same thing with Sarah and David's tents. Each time, as soon as I spoke, the whispers stopped, and they responded with sleepy, normal voices. They had no memory of it. They all said they had slept great, and I was just being paranoid. But I knew what I had heard. That day, the atmosphere was different. The fun, carefree energy was gone. I felt a constant, growing sense of unease. My friends noticed it too. They kept glancing over their shoulders, their laughter was forced, and the silence between our conversations was thick with a tension we couldn't name. We all felt it, whatever it was. The whispers started earlier that night. We were sitting around the fire, trying to eat, but nobody was really hungry. The sun had just set, and the woods were shrouded in a dusky gloom. The whispers started as a low background noise, a constant buzzing in the air, barely audible but impossible to ignore. It was like static. "There it is again," Sarah said, her voice small. Mark and David nodded, their faces pale in the firelight. They could hear it too now. They weren't talking, but their eyes were wide with fear, scanning the tree line. The whispers got louder and louder. It wasn't a low hum anymore. It was like 100 people were standing just beyond the firelight, talking over each other in a frantic, hurried cadence. The sound filled the clearing, suffocating us. "What is that?" David stammered, his eyes darting around. We all knew what he was really asking. It wasn't a "what" in the sense of a sound. It was a "what" in the sense of a thing. A presence. I got up, grabbed a large flashlight from our supplies, and flicked it on, its beam cutting a stark white line through the darkness. I swept it along the edge of the woods, my hand shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. Nothing. Just the endless rows of pine trees, their branches rustling softly in a breeze that didn't feel natural. "We should go," Sarah said, standing up. Her voice was trembling, barely a whisper itself. Mark and David were already packing things into their backpacks. We didn't need to discuss it. We knew, without saying it out loud, that this trip was over. We didn't belong here. We left everything we couldn't quickly stuff into our bags. Tents, coolers, all of it. We didn't care. We just wanted to get out. The whispers were at their peak now, a roaring cacophony of sound that felt like it was inside our very skulls. It was 100 different languages, 1,000 different voices, all speaking at once, with an undercurrent of something deeply malevolent. As we sprinted down the dirt trail toward my truck, I swear I could hear something in the whispers. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone. It was a strange mix of frantic urgency, of desperation, of a terrifying, mournful plea. It was like we were being warned about something terrible that was about to happen. We piled into my truck and I floored it, the tires kicking up a cloud of dust. We didn't speak a word the entire way home. We just drove, the silence in the cab a blessed relief after the terrible roar of the woods. When we got back to the city, we dropped everyone off and I went home, locking my doors and windows. I sat on my couch, the sound of my own quiet apartment a strange comfort. It wasn't until a few days later, after I had convinced myself that it was all just an overactive imagination, that I looked at the news. There was a story about an old hermit, a man who lived alone in the deep woods where we had camped. He had been found dead. The article said he had been missing for weeks, but that his body had been found in a clearing, not far from a creek. The medical examiner said the cause of death was unknown, but that it appeared the man had simply starved to death. Despite having a perfectly good supply of food and water in his nearby cabin. Then I read the strangest part of the story. The article mentioned that the police had found a strange, crudely carved stick figure in his cabin. The figure was of a man with his hands over his ears. Below it, scrawled in charcoal, was a single phrase. "They won't stop whispering." I still get a shiver down my spine when I think about it. And sometimes, late at night, when the house is completely quiet, I swear I can hear a faint whisper from the very edge of my hearing. 1,000 desperate, overlapping voices that are speaking, or maybe warning, but I can never quite make out the words. And I pray I never do.